Hello, Jason here. I'm going to try something new in this video. What we're currently listening to is the patch that I put together for the introduction of my recent Neóni overview video. The way that I do videos is I'll shoot the majority of the footage and then I'll take a breather, do a musical patch, and then go back and record the introduction so that I've got something that is a bit more musically interesting to start the thing off. But what I've been thinking to do is an ongoing series of videos where I start with something that is more of a musical patch example, and then I'll dissect the patch, go through how it's constructed, and then rebuild it from scratch, sort of following through the thought process that I had, like for a starting point of creating a more harmonic or melodic patch, or a compositional technique. I think that could be quite fun. So what I think I'll do here is I'll break out all these cable ties and try and trace back what's going on, and go over the foundation of where I was thinking when I was creating this patch, and then I will clear the cables and start again from scratch and try and recreate this as close as I can. That way I'm able to sort of describe through step by step what I was thinking, what I was, the different layers that I was building up when I was coming up with the ideas. That's a nice resolution to end on. Okay, I'll be back with you in a moment to tear this patch apart. Here we go. It's been a few days since I actually put this patch together. I was able to just leave it running in the video room so that I could revisit it at a time. And let's try and trace what's going on. So at the core of it, I'm using the harmony to manually play through a chord progression. I believe the harmony is set up in Aeolian mode here, so that's natural minor. The chord tones I was choosing when improvising in the overview video intro and the intro to this video, I'm playing through mostly the modal notes, and then adding in the occasional modal interchange chord tone, so that's flat 2, major 7 sounds nice, resolving to the 1. Okay, so I'm going to pull these two 1Fs down, and this should bring our tone to a single mono center point. So the patch, fundamentally, I've patched in stereo, so I've got two voices panned hard left, hard right, but the left and right channels are actually cross-fading via these two 1Fs to a common foundation. And there's a few tricks that I was experimenting with that led to this patch. So this core voice is a combination of two oscillators. So the full patch itself is a 3 oscillator voice, where first voice I'm using this Neóni, which is this output here. What I'll do in the edit, I'll isolate this and send that to being mono. So this is the wavefolder output of this Neóni, and it is being modulated in wavefold depth from the øchd, so that's what's creating that rhythmic pattern. The rhythm is actually just the øchd self-patched, so that it's FMing itself and creating more of a non-linear stepping. It sounds almost like sample and hold, but there's a bit more of a movement to that. So that's just changing the depth of the wavefold amount. When I was patching, I didn't start with a rhythmic variation in mind. I started harmonically, so I was using this as my root note, and then had this second voice as my third. So it started off as a dyad. It was just these two voices for root and third, left and right. And then I ended up adding in the foundation. That's the mono signal that's between two, and that's actually a combination of the root oscillator being exclusive OR combined with the square wave of a third oscillator, which is coming from the fifth output of the harmony. So I've got a triad now, so root 5, root 3, 5, although we never directly hear the fifth. The fifth is being XOR'd with the root, and that's creating this new square wave tone, which is being low pass filtered. So the beat frequency we have here is actually the just slight detuning between the root and fifth. So if I remove one of these, so this is that's the fifth, this is the root. And I've got a bit of slew on the root note. So there's a little bit of drift there compared to the fifth, which is jumping immediately. I guess there was a tiny amount of slew on there. And when they're exclusive OR combined, they become a single tone, which you're getting these interesting sidebands in the timbre. And that whole voice being low pass filtered with a bit of resonance. So now, where's that wobble coming from? That will be the next question. So whenever I play the harmony, that's producing a gate signal. That gate is triggering the cease ADSR. I've got it in trig mode, so it just needs a rising edge signal and it will force the attack phase to complete. So it's basically creating a nice up ramp, down ramp. That envelope output is going to two destinations. So the first destination is going to the top channel of this Vinca, so it's going to a VCA. So it's the envelope is opening a VCA, not over an audio signal, but actually over an LFO signal. So you see the other channel from, or the other input from this Vinca is coming from the sine wave LFO, which is the top voice of this CSL. So that's an LFO range. So when I open the envelope, we're actually getting the LFO rate starting to come through as the depth opens and closes based on the cease, and then the output of that is going into my FM input of the 1047 filter. So whenever I strike a note, we get that sort of wobble in there. And to add a little bit more natural movement to it, I'm using the same envelope from the cease. I'm just passively multing that, and that's going to the FM input of that LFO. So whenever I strike the envelope, it's opening up the amplitude of that going to the FM of the filter, while simultaneously increasing the rate of the LFO. If I now bring this up and blend between my stereo left and right with this core mono sound. It's quite nice as I can play with the detuning between the root and the fifth for the center voice. As the fifth's never heard directly, it just changes the beating pattern of that common voice. Especially when I land on this major seventh, because that chord tone is a diminished. It means that the 5 is actually going to be a flat 5, so that adds more dissonance. I'll tune that to an accurate perfect fifth. We've got that diminished fifth now, which makes it a little bit more atonal. So I found that was quite a nice touch, going from the diminished major seventh, retuning the fifth to get the beating more accurate. When I then land back on the 1 as the chord progression cadence, I've got slightly more detuning between root and 5, but on that 1, especially when it's mixed in, it adds quite a nice bit of more body to the tone. There's more movement in that core mono signal. Okay, so let's go and look at our third voice, which is the output is actually coming from this Neóni through this 1F to the output. And it's the sine wave output. So this Neóni is actually in through 0FM mode. So the fundamental is coming from this TSL. So if I trace this patch cable, there's the third output of the harmony, going to volt per octave of the TSL. And that's being used to do two things at once actually. The modulation signal coming out into the FM input, which is AC coupled to ensure that it's a tonal voice. I'll remove the modulation just now. This is hard pan to the right, but in the video I'll change it so it's focused on mono. So the TSL is actually defining the pitch, and the Neóni, which is the carrier in this through 0FM operator pair, is timbre. And I'm using an attenuated modulator coming from this output of the øchd, which again is a less linear stepped pattern due to the self-patching. I bring up the level of that into volt per octave. Yep, that's giving me a bit of a rhythmic movement, which is quite nice in comparison to the root note, which is a higher rate rhythmic pattern. So the FM signal itself is coming from the wavefolder of the TSL, so it's not just the sine wave. And there's actually a modulation signal going to that wavefold depth, which is a self-running tie module here, which is sample and hold. So that's just random step voltage that's giving different wavefold depths. I had it turned in quite low, so I'm not sure how much it was truly affecting the timbre. Adding just that slight bit more irregularity to the tone, I think. The last trick was this patch cable. There we go, so that's much less stable now. So I'm using the square wave output from the TSL, which is my tune to the third from the harmony. and that is soft syncing the Neóni in addition to the through zero frequency modulation. I actually had the option of different subs. I was using the rightmost position, which is fundamental square, because already that sort of adds in accentuation of a subharmonic on this Neóni. Bring it back up to stereo. I think that wavefold depth variation is just a little bit much. Increase the slew, reduce the rate, and reduce the amplitude of that, so there's slightly less aggressive movement in the wavefold depth of that modulator. Cool, I think I covered everything there. Seems that this tie here is receiving a sawtooth wave from the same LFO that's controlling the 1047 via the Vinca controlled by the cease, but it's not actually going anywhere. I think initially I had that patched to be the source that was being quantized by the harmony, and I just dialed in the chord tones I wanted, but yeah, it was truly random, just sampling white noise, so I opted to manually play the patch instead. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to transcribe this patch a bit just so I've got my own reference to rebuild from, and then I will rip everything out and then start from scratch and try and get back to this general sonic position. Speak to you soon. Okay, so let's start from scratch. First up, I'm going to get my harmony control scheme set up. So I'm controlling the three oscillator voices and get everything tuned to a unison and to the right foundation pitch to recreate the patch. So root first, then we had third, which was going to the TSL, and the TSL was through zero frequency modulating the second Neóni. So it was root on this Neóni, third on this TSL going into the Neóni as a wave shaper, and then the fifth was from this toner. So I'll probably just go through one at a time, or maybe cross mix, so I can get a mix of the different voices together and tune them all together. I think eventually I was using the Wavefolder for the modulation source, but I'll start with the sine wave just so I can get the starting point nice and clean. There you go, so I can now use this as a crossfader between the two voices. Set this to unison tuning mode. Start with that. I can always fine tune the whole thing globally from the harmony. do. That's all three oscillators tuned to the same foundation pitch. So let's recreate the initial root note, which was this Neóni and this tona, the square waves XOR'd together at the as, and that was going through the low pass filter. Let's hear how that sounds to start with. That's the root. That's a perfect fifth. And together I'm getting this thicker, more interesting foundation tone. And if I detune them slightly, I get some deep frequencies coming through. There we go. Okay, let's run this through the filter. Just a low pass output. Resonance. Yeah, that sounds pretty close to where I had it before. Okay, so for my initial left-right channels, I had this as going into channel 2 of both these 1Fs. So that had dual mono when they're together, and then I could bring these up and have hard left and hard right split between the two other voices. So let's set that up now. Voice 2 and voice 1. What I can actually do is use the notch output and have the notch offset set fully anti-clockwise, and that actually gives me a duplicate of the low pass output, as this just crossfades between the low pass and the high pass to give me a variable notch output. We could hear that just for reference actually. Low pass and high pass. So let's make this our left, and this one our right. Okay, so we now have this on both the left and right. What I could also do is run the square wave of my root through channel 4 on the scope. And normal it to that. Sure this is in Aeolian, yep. Cool. Okay, let's patch up the control voltage for the 1047 first. So that's going to be coming from the gate output, and I'm using that to trigger my cease Anytime the gate's on, I put it in trigger mode, and that way I can trigger it and we'll have the attack phase completing automatically, and then that'll jump straight into release, so we'll have a nice big ascending and descending voltage ramp. And let's take this out here. I need a multiple because this was going to 2 destinations. Let's use a shorter patch cable. Here we go. And this is going to go to one input of the top VCA, and also I'll patch that to here. The attenuator is down at the moment, so won't have any effect quite yet. So this is when I strike the envelope, the ramp, as it comes up and down, it increases the rate of the LFO, which is going to be wobbling the filter. So let's add in our sine wave. Actually, let's get it to a it starts off quite slow and speeds up as the envelope runs through. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so instead of that going direct, I'm going to send that via VCA. So we now should be able to see, if I bring up the attenuator. If I switch these around, I might have slightly better control. Yeah, there we go. And I've got these set in parallel as opposed to series. And I'll bring that up so that as the envelope opens and the LFO comes through, it's the whole thing's unipolar positive and moving around that center point. That way I can control its sort of starting point. That's pretty cool. Detune slightly. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, let's get the root and third voices up and running. So the first one was the wavefold output. Okay, so the actual modulation signal I used, I was self-patching the øchd. And turn that up slightly, put that around the middle. There we go. We can now see on the various LFOs, they're no longer linear ramps up and down. We're getting sort of a more jaunty stepped pattern. And it was the second channel I was using as my modulation source over the wavefolder. Sounds about right. That's sort of a syncopated pattern. And let's hook up our second voice. This seems to be through 0 mode, AC coupled. Minor third. Getting close, getting close. Okay, so I need to use the 5th LFO output here, and that was being attenuated by this guy, and that was patched into my volt per octave. Okay, so let's add a few more modifications. It's starting to come together. Yeah, that's more like it. It's the foundation a bit brighter. That diminished 7. There's one thing I was missing. It sort of was a soft sync from this square. So if I tune this back up an octave, I was using that soft sync trick to get the subharmonic there. When you're using voices with this level of complexity of wave shaping and sync ratios, register can sometimes get a little bit muddied. So as soon as I remove that, I've effectively pitched this up an octave by removing that subharmonic. Let's add a little bit more movement here and there. I'll use this sample and hold. Sample and hold mode. I'll slew it slightly and decrease the range. It's very easy to just get completely lost in minor tweaks continually. It's like you know, any creative process. It's very hard to draw a line at an end point. Quite often when I'm working on a patch that I'm going to be using in some sort of musical context, I'll set aside as long as I possibly can, but ideally you would split this up over a couple of days, even if you've got the luxury of being able to set up a system, let it run for a bit, shut it down, power it back up, and the following day, and then revisit it, and then you've kind of got that, you know, fresh ears to come back to it, and then fine tune. It's like working on a mix where you know, a mix is never going to be done. You just need to abandon it at a certain point. Yeah, I'm not sure it's quite at the sweet spot that I had it first time round, but I think that's pretty good for having initialized everything and rebuilt from a rough map. So it shows that there's, you know, the smallest deviations between index ratio or just mix levels can make all the difference in deeper patches like this. Hopefully this has been helpful as a way to sort of see some a bit of a range of different mixing approaches. So I guess I'll see you on the next patch.